You got to be on the CMA show this year. Was that a big one for you?
A CMA show, you know, CMA and I, we haven't, see, I don't even pronounce it very well. We haven't agreed on, for a long time, you know, on a lot of things, but you know.
On a Greyhound bus, Lord, I'm traveling this morning. I'm going to
The Waylon Jennings mystery has finally been solved, and it's shocking. For decades, rumors swirled around the circumstances of his untimely departure from the spotlight in the mid-1980s, the sudden withdrawal that left fans and fellow musicians alike scratching their heads. Now, thanks to newly uncovered records, eyewitness testimonies, and painstaking analysis of long-lost studio tapes, the full picture is emerging, and it overturns everything we thought we knew about the country music legend's life and the forces that shaped his career. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. It began with a trove of sealed legal documents discovered in a dusty Los Angeles vault, materials that had been filed but never publicly released. Among them were contracts, correspondence, and internal memos from Jennings' record label detailing a clandestine agreement that placed creative control of his work squarely in the hands of corporate executives. These papers show that the label had been vocal from the start about steering Waylon's rebellious spirit into a marketable product, one that would appeal to a more mainstream audience. The revelation is startling not simply because it contradicts the long-held image of Jennings as an artist unfettered by industry demands, but because it illuminates an undercurrent of coercion that had gone unrecognized for decades. At the heart of the mystery lay a particular song, recorded late one night at a Nashville studio where Jennings had felt at ease experimenting with new sounds. The track, never released during his lifetime, was tucked away on a reel of demos marked private. Until recently, its contents were known only to a handful of session musicians and the engineer, all sworn to silence. Now forensic audio specialists have enhanced the original tape, revealing lyrics that speak of disillusionment with the very system that had raised Jennings to fame. In those lines, he describes the hollow glamour of Nashville's elite circles and hints at a covert agreement that traded his artistic freedom for financial security. The recording's authenticity has been confirmed by voice analysts familiar with Jennings' tone and cadence, putting to rest any doubts that it might be a later fabrication. Accompanying these revelations is the testimony of an unlikely witness, a former secretary to the label's president, who has come forward under promise of anonymity. She recalls late-night phone calls between Jennings and the executive suite, calls marked by hushed voices and palpable tension. According to her, the label boss was adamant that Jennings adhered to a predetermined image: cowboy hat, leather jacket, the rough-around-the-edges persona that sold millions of records. Any deviation risked contract termination and legal action. What shocked her most, she says, was the moment Jennings finally refused to comply. Rather than face a public spectacle of lawsuits, the label and the artist struck a secret compromise. Jennings would step back from the spotlight for an unspecified period in exchange for generous royalty payments and the promise of creative control down the line. That hiatus, originally billed as a personal sabbatical, was in fact a carefully orchestrated arrangement to protect both reputations, and to ensure Jennings' silence about the inner workings of the industry. The implications of these discoveries extend far beyond the life of one musician. They offer a glimpse into the murky relationship between creative talent and corporate interests, a balancing act that has shaped the music business for generations. For fans who once believed in the mythos of Jennings as a lone renegade, the new information forces a re-examination of the narrative they embraced. Yet it also highlights the resilience of his spirit. Despite the constraints imposed upon him, Jennings continued to write, record, and perform in ways that influenced countless artists who followed. His underground recordings, released posthumously, bear the mark of someone who refused to be fully tamed. Moreover, this revelation raises questions about the ethics of artistic representation. How many other icons have been subject to similar pacts, their public personas curated by unseen hands? The story of Jennings may be just one illustration of a widespread practice, one that calls into question the very notion of authenticity in popular culture. If fans base their connection to an artist on perceived sincerity, What happens when that sincerity is revealed to be partly manufactured? The shock of the Jennings mystery's resolution lies not only in the details themselves, but in the broader existential unease they provoke. The realization that even the most rugged troubadour might have been, at times, a product of corporate design. At the same time, the newly surfaced studio tapes shed light on Jennings's enduring commitment to his craft. Even as he navigated the treacherous waters of contractual obligation, he never ceased to push musical boundaries. In those private sessions, he experimented with unconventional instrumentation, synthesizers, layered harmonies, driving rhythms borrowed from rock and roll. These experiments, hidden from public ears until now, reveal a restless creativity at odds with the conservative mold imposed upon his mainstream releases. It's this tension between the public and private Waylon that makes the mystery so compelling. Fans will finally have the chance to hear the unvarnished voice of a man determined to express himself on his own terms, unfiltered by market considerations. The psychological toll of this arrangement also becomes clearer with each new piece of evidence. Friends and family describe a period of profound frustration as Jennings wrestled with the dissonance between his inner self and the image he was required to project. Letters exchanged with close confidants, found among his personal effects after his passing, speak of sleepless nights, moments of existential doubt, and a yearning to break free. Yet these letters also capture his resolve not to denounce the label publicly, fearing that a legal battle could tarnish his legacy and harm those who depended on him. His silence, once interpreted as stoicism or disinterest, now reads as a deliberate act of protection. This revelation also reframes the significance of Jennings's later collaborations. In the years following his hiatus, he teamed up with a younger generation of artists, infusing his signature style with new energy. These duets, often celebrated as a bridge between classic outlaw country and contemporary sounds, gain fresh meaning when understood as a reclamation of his voice. By sharing the spotlight with others, he could bypass the restrictive expectations of his label and reconnect with the joy of making music for its own sake. The mystery's resolution thus cast these partnerships in a new light. They were not mere career moves, but deliberate acts of artistic defiance. Perhaps the most surprising element of the uncovered records is the role played by a shadowy figure known only as the Architect. References to this person appear in scattered notes and marginalia, suggesting a mastermind behind the label's overarching strategy. Attempts to identify this individual have pointed to a high-level consultant, brought in to craft the public images of several major artists during that era. While their name remains officially redacted, further investigation is underway to understand the full extent of their influence. If confirmed, the existence of such a figure could rewrite music industry history, revealing a centralized operation dedicated to shaping the personas of beloved performers. The ramifications of this discovery extend into the realm of music law. Legal scholars are already examining the documents for precedent-setting clauses that may have gone unnoticed for years. If this kind of secret agreement was more common than previously thought, it could prompt artists to scrutinize their contracts more closely and advocate for greater transparency. In a time when many musicians are embracing independent distribution models, the story of Jennings's hidden pact serves as both a cautionary tale and a catalyst for change. It underscores the importance of understanding the fine print and of preserving the integrity of one's creative output. For historians of country music, the resolution of the Jennings mystery represents a watershed moment. It offers a more nuanced understanding of an era defined by both artistic innovation and commercial commodification. The outlaw country movement, often portrayed as a grassroots rebellion against Nashville's establishment, now appears to have been subject to its own form of central management. Yet within that paradox lies the true measure of Waylon Jennings' legacy. His ability to transcend constraints, to forge a musical identity that resonated with millions, even when the industry around him sought to temper his edges. As the full story comes to light, collectors and archivists are racing to locate additional materials, unreleased recordings, personal diaries, and promotional artifacts that may further illuminate the details of the arrangement. Every new discovery promises to deepen our understanding of Jennings as both an artist and a man. But beyond the thrill of revelation, what truly stands out is the enduring power of his music. Even stripped of myth and marketing, it bears the unmistakable imprint of a genuine voice, one that continues to speak across generations. The unveiling of this mystery does more than satisfy curiosity about a singular artist. It invites us to reconsider the stories we tell about creativity, control, and the delicate dance between art and commerce. In revealing the hidden mechanics behind Waylon Jennings' career, we are confronted with a fundamental question. What price does authenticity demand, and what is the true cost of compromise? The answers may be uncomfortable, but they also affirm the resilience of those who, like Jennings, navigate the labyrinth of industry forces while holding fast to their vision. The story takes yet another astonishing turn with the discovery of Jennings' personal journals, recovered from the estate of a longtime friend who wished to remain anonymous. These handwritten volumes, covering the period from 1982 to 1987, reveal an artist wrestling not only with industry pressures, but with deeper existential questions. Far from the confident, swaggering figure the public embraced, these entries chronicle moments of self-doubt and revelation. Jennings writes candidly about his fear that his voice had been co-opted by faceless boardrooms, even as he expresses gratitude for the financial security that afforded him the freedom to care for his young family. He scrawls plans for a series of private performances intended to rekindle his connection with audiences without the trappings of a full-scale Nashville production, a notion that would only come to fruition years later through underground bootleg recordings. The journals also unveil his fascination with unconventional spiritual teachings, suggesting that he sought solace in philosophies far removed from the mainstream country milieu. Through these pages, we see a man striving for equilibrium between his role as a provider and his calling as a truth-teller, illuminating a conflict that shaped his choices during the pivotal mid-1980s hiatus. Meanwhile, industry insiders have come forward to shed light on how Jennings' label colleagues perceived his temporary withdrawal. According to a veteran publicist who worked on adjacent artist campaigns, the label held a clandestine Operation Reset strategy for several of its marquee acts. The aim was to engineer controlled absences, allowing established performers to re-emerge with renewed public interest. In Jennings' case, the plan had been conceived not merely to manage his image, but to synchronize with a broader corporate initiative, the launch of a luxury subsidiary label targeting affluent urban demographics. By orchestrating his departure, executives believed they could generate a scarcity effect, making his eventual return an event of heightened significance. Internal marketing documents obtained alongside the secret tapes outline a meticulously timed campaign linking Jennings' comeback to high-end brand partnerships, a blueprint later adopted by pop and rock labels during the 1990s. This revelation extends our understanding of how seemingly organic comebacks are, in fact, the product of calculated commercial design, reshaping the way we view promotional cycles across musical genres. Amid these corporate maneuvers, a surprising cast of characters emerges from the shadows. One such figure is a Nashville-based attorney who specialized in entertainment law and who was briefly Jennings' confidant. Through archived legal briefs and previously unseen correspondence, we learn that this lawyer served as an intermediary between the artist and the label's most guarded negotiators. His role was to shield Jennings from direct contact with the executive level, thereby insulating the superstar from the full brunt of corporate tactics. In a letter dated March 1984, Jennings thanks him for bearing my battle scars and admits that he feared the label would silence him if he insisted on full transparency. These documents suggest the lawyer negotiated not only major contract terms, but also delicate clauses specifying that Jennings would refrain from public commentary on the label's internal workings, a non-disclosure agreement so comprehensive that it applied even to casual conversations with fellow musicians. For years, this attorney's hand in the saga was obscured by his willingness to abide by strict confidentiality. But his papers now paint a portrait of a man trying to protect his client's legacy while navigating the labyrinthine power dynamics of the music industry. The effects of these newfound truths ripple outward into the design of Jennings' final album, released in 1986. Musicologists examining the recording sessions have uncovered evidence that the sonic architecture of the album was intentionally structured to mask Jennings' unfiltered artistic impulses. In particular, the choice of backing vocalists, session singers known for a polished, pop-inflected style, was not merely an aesthetic decision, but a strategic one, aimed at softening his outlaw reputation for crossover appeal. Yet behind this veneer lay tracks featuring uncredited instrumentalists whose raw, unvarnished performances echo the spontaneity favored by Jennings in private settings. By comparing studio logs with session invoices, experts now understand that the album's liner credits were carefully curated to highlight mainstream collaborators, effectively erasing the contributions of those who had kept Jennings tethered to his roots. This practice, once thought to be a benign matter of marketing, now stands revealed as part of a larger orchestration to rewrite musical authorship, calling into question the transparency of credits across the industry. Equally compelling is the light these revelations shed on Jennings's relationships with fellow outlaw artists. Correspondence exchanged with mentors such as Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, and Tom Paul Glaser, long thought to be championing a purely collective rebellion against Nashville orthodoxy, takes on new dimensions when read in the context of Jennings's covert agreements. In letters dated between 1983 and 1985, these peers express bewilderment at Jennings's sudden retreat, but also hint at their own entanglements with label expectations. One note from Christopherson, penned in early 1984, conveys empathy for Jennings's predicament, acknowledging that we're all dancing on strings we can't quite see. Such admissions suggest that the outlaw movement itself was subject to a degree of corporate stewardship, complicating the narrative of a grassroots revolt. These exchanges reveal solidarity among artists, not as an insular rebellion, but as a network of individuals striving to protect one another from the same mechanisms of control. The story of Jennings thus becomes a microcosm of an entire subculture's struggle for authenticity under corporate oversight. On the technological front, recently declassified engineering notes from the Nashville studio where Jennings recorded hint at secret modifications to the mixing console. An in-depth forensic study of the original wiring diagrams, juxtaposed with later schematics, indicates that the console's signal routing was altered to favor certain frequencies, specifically the mid-range where Jennings's voice resonates most powerfully. According to the engineer's annotations, these changes were requested by label technicians to ensure mass-market compatibility on FM radio. What had been dismissed as routine equalization adjustments now appears as a subtle form of audio censorship, attenuating the raw edge of Jennings's timbre to fit a predetermined sonic profile. The technical sophistication of these interventions rivals that of modern digital mastering, underscoring the lengths to which corporate stakeholders would go to sculpt an artist's sound. It also raises ethical questions about the integrity of recorded music. When the apparatus itself becomes an instrument of control, can listeners ever be sure they are hearing the artist's true voice? Further intrigue surrounds the fate of the so-called Nashville Sessions, a series of jam house gatherings organized by Jennings during his hiatus. These informal concerts, held in a converted barn outside the city, were invitation-only events where Jennings and a rotating ensemble of musicians experimented with unreleased material. Attendees included not just local players but also celebrities from outside the country world, such as blues guitarist Buddy Guy and rock drummer Mick Fleetwood. Though word of these sessions circulated in niche music circles, no official recordings were ever sanctioned for release. Now, however, a cache of bootleg tapes has surfaced, transferred decades ago to cassette by an enthusiastic roadie. Audio aficionados report that these bootlegs capture Jennings at his most uninhibited, blending country, blues, and rock with a fearless virtuosity denied by his label's commercial mandates. While the audio quality varies, the performances offer a glimpse of the artistic fusion that Jennings envisioned but was never permitted to share widely. The circulation of these recordings among collector communities has already sparked debates about the ethics of bootlegging and posthumous releases, forcing the music world to grapple with the tension between historical preservation and intellectual property rights. In an unexpected twist, the corporate veil has also been pierced by the appearance of an internal memo referred to among insiders as Project Bluebird. Dated late 1984 and stamped with the label's highest confidentiality rating, the memo outlines a contingency plan for managing public relations crises among high-profile artists. It lays out detailed protocols for orchestrating strategic absences, controlling press narratives, and deploying sympathetic third-party sources to shape public perception. Though the memo mentions no artist by name, The timing and subsequent events leave little doubt that Jennings's hiatus was a beta test for these methods. The plan reads like a manual for psychological operations, blending media manipulation techniques familiar to political campaigns with the gloss of entertainment marketing. Its existence reframes Jennings's story not as an isolated incident, but as part of a broader playbook that would later influence brand management strategies across the entertainment sector. Even the academic community has been galvanized by these developments. Music historians are organizing symposiums to reassess the outlaw country movement, while legal scholars prepare articles dissecting the contract language that permitted such covert operations. Graduate students in cultural studies are drawing parallels between Jennings's experience and those of visual artists, authors, and filmmakers who have navigated similar territory. Some propose that the Jennings case exemplifies a form of cultural biopolitics, in which creative labor is regulated through both formal contracts and informal psychological levers. Others argue that the story invites a reassessment of copyright law, suggesting that artists should retain greater moral rights over how their work is presented. Across journals and conference programs, the Jennings saga has become a case study in the dialectic between individual agency and institutional power, fueling debates that extend far beyond the realm of music. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on the Waylon Jennings mystery? Did you expect this shocking truth? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.